Blessings, dear sisters. We are activating this month the sacred feminine role of the storyteller. From all ancient traditions, stories have been used to depict, to transmit deep, deep wisdom. This was the way that wisdom was carried from generation to generation over time, through the stories that were told, through the stories that were sung. This is how wisdom was passed down, passed in time, revealed, transmitted through the stories. So when we look at mythological stories, when we look at that, what's important is that we look at all the aspects that are being shown in the story. All the characters in the story are an intricate part of your psyche. Yeah, so all the characters in the story are you, and they're showing you the different elements, the different fragmentations, the different parts in which how we want to split ourselves to experience. And that also, the story wants to bring us back to the totality of who we are. They also serve to communicate ways to move through certain blocks, certain thresholds in our lives. So stories sometimes communicate very deeply about these rites of passage that we go through in each initiation in our lives. So the storyteller role, it's important because it can activate in someone the understanding of what their life situation is in that moment. Because in our human psyche, we have the tendency to want to look at our story as not just a literal thing, but we also tend to get stuck in the emotions that get activated in the story. And we begin to identify ourselves with the emotional content of the story instead of the transcendental opportunities that are available in the story. When we hear a story, a mythical story, we can perceive better than in our personal experience the transcendental opportunities. So that is the powerful role that a storyteller has, and this is a deep, sacred feminine role that allows us to see through our attachments, to see through our conditionings, and see the way through the initiation, the way through the opportunity, and the elevation, the transcendental opportunities that are available in each story. So in the Tantric way, one of the things is it's to study the myths of the goddess and understand all the keys, all the transcendental keys that each goddess carries to help us through specific life conditions that are transcendental opportunities. And this is what the storyteller takes us into, is understanding every moment of our lives, be it the happy times, the difficult times, the times where we feel we're winning, the times where we feel we're failing. These are all transcendental opportunities to understand one more piece of the puzzle, one more piece of the wholeness of who we are. Because Tantra really wants to bring us away from the dualistic understanding of ourselves into a much more all-encompassing view of who we are, transcending duality, without effacing it, without denying the dualistic aspect of the lives that we live, of this dimension where we are in, we fully embrace the duality, to transcend it, to really feel the wholeness of who we are. So how can we practice this? Yes, so beyond studying mythological stories and trying to download and receive the keys of that stories, there's a few practices we can do by understanding our own storytelling. Yeah, because we are constantly telling a story of our lives. Even if you're not speaking to anyone, there is a story that is being told over and over again within your psyche. When you begin to recognize that, when you begin to see and perceive through the stories, the repetitional stories that you keep telling yourself, and when you begin to see through the attachments, the conditionings, the loopholes that you are stuck into, they're like little whirlpools that don't flow with the river. Yeah, and they keep you stuck in that ruminating over and over again into specific points. But within that whirlpool, there's always an opportunity to escape into the flow of the river, right? And these are the transcendental keys. These are the unlocking moments that we can find within the stories that we've been telling ourselves. So how can we first come into awareness of the stories that are repeating within our minds? How can we open that story to understanding where are these whirlpools that are keeping us stuck, not flowing with the direction, the transcendental direction that these stories, these events really want to take us towards? And where is the key to join the flow again? What is the key to transcendence? Yeah. So first is that practice of noticing and becoming really, really aware of the stories you've been telling. Now, how can you begin to tell that story in a different way? And by this, I don't mean by making you the hero of the story or by completely changing the reality of what happened and going into some delusional place, right? But it's to see the story from a bigger perspective, see the events and the things that you have been perceiving in a very narrow view and open the view. So how can you begin to perceive more than the emotional hooks of the event, and begin to perceive more and more the opportunity for wholeness, the opportunity for openness, the opportunity for the expression of the purity of the being that you are in that flow of information, in that flow of events that you have experienced, or the flow of events that you are creating an experience of. So how do you take your story and create a story of openness, of love expression, of full embracement of life, full embracement of life and living? Then the storyteller within begins to open a much deeper space of consciousness. And this is how I would use the practice of Tantra, because this is what Tantra is. How do we expand our consciousness beyond the conditionings, beyond what we've been shackled into, the stories that shackle us in not living life free, in not living life open, expanded to the love that we are. Releasing all ideas of good and bad, all dualistic ideas that keep us stuck in a story that doesn't resolve. and seeing the opportunities for expansion, the opportunities for growth, the opportunities for touching a much bigger part of ourselves through acceptance of what is, through acceptance, deep, radical acceptance of this present moment here right now. When nothing else matters than just this moment right now. The story begins to change. The story begins to embrace you. The story begins to elevate you. And the story begins to transform you. I want to read a couple of verses here from the Tantric Sutras, which may help you understand the power that the storyteller carries. The power to keep you stuck or the power to liberate you. The real transmutation, the most sacred offering, is to pour the elements of your body, all your sensual impressions, into the fire of the great void. Your richness of experience is the wine you offer to the divinity that is everywhere. The real sacrifice is to let your sins be destroyed by the vast power of the universe. It is to live in radiant bliss. Senses dissolve, mind dissolves, the objects of sense dissolve, even the void is dissolved. This is transcendence. So the question is, are the stories you are telling you bringing you closer or further to this place of radical acceptance and transcendence? Infinite blessings, sisters. Infinite blessings.